Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Hope you're all well, and very welcome to this second sort of focus session that we're doing today on the options available or the tools available for remote teaching and learning. I want to introduce Dara and Garod, who are on with me here. Garod, do you want to say a word?
Sure. Turn on my webcam briefly there. Hi, everybody. So nothing earth-shattering to say from my end, Shane, just to welcome everyone, really. Those who are tuning in through YouTube or through Zoom or indeed watching later. So we hope you find this and other sessions useful. So this session, like all other sessions, will be recorded. Now, that's not to say you can stop watching at this stage. It's just to say, don't worry if you don't catch everything. You'll be able to review things afterwards. And I also want to say, Shane, thanks to you for your hard work in putting this together. Because of what's being demoed, it's a difficult and demanding task to pull off, really. Not that Big Blue Button is so difficult to use, but essentially Shane is running a live session inside a live session. So it's a bit like the movie Inception. So your patience is appreciated. Thanks, Shane.
No problem at all. Yeah. So hopefully everything will go as planned. If it doesn't, sure, look, we might have a small hiccup. We can pick up from there. So today we're going to look at the conferences feature within Canvas. So that is, I suppose, the live e-learning tool that we have sort of licensed for all lecturing staff in CIT. And basically what that provides is an integrated virtual, live virtual tool in Canvas that takes the advantage of things like module enrollments and the ability to be able to start sort of group sessions, etc. So in this particular overview, excuse me, we're going to look at what is conferences, first of all. We're going to look at setting up a virtual class, a live class. We're going to look at the interface. So the conferences are Big Blue Button interface, and just getting familiar with that. We're also going to just start up and run a live session. So that's, I suppose, where things get slightly tricky for me, because I'm running it as a stream out to YouTube and as a conference. So bear with me on that. And we have the very capable Paul Keneally as well in waiting as a student for that particular session once we've got set up. Playing back a recording and viewing stats is important, I suppose, once you've recorded the session and ran the session, being able to kind of see how it went. And then we're going to talk about who you can contact regarding support, I guess, and open it up then to questions and discussion in the sort of the Zoom follow-up after the live stream. So I hope we'll get all of that done in the 35 minutes or so, and we'll have the questions afterwards there. So I suppose you're all familiar at this stage, hopefully, with the our site, the tel.cit.ie site, and this is sort of where we're adding to resources and content quite regularly. So over the last kind of 2 weeks, we've been building content around the whole idea of remote teaching and learning. And so this is just one of the options that's available. So the other options are what Dara was covering, and the stuff that you can do in Canvas, including be able to record audio and video into Canvas, for example. The ability also to record your computer screen. So Screencast-O-Matic is a screencasting application that is allowing you to pre-record your content and then to upload it. And then this option is live delivery of content online. So they're all options. I suppose people will, it'll suit people whatever option or combination of options that they choose to use. I suppose we're just presenting them to you and let you make your own mind up, I suppose, in what you want to use. So the live tool of choice has a sort of a help section, an ever-growing help section as well in our resource center here. So you have online live lectures, remote teaching through Canvas. And that kind of goes through things like minimum requirements and the steps that we'll be going through today, as well as we're going to add a few screencasts and so on, and other articles once people get familiar with the platform. So today is about onboarding you on the whole sort of conferences feature, and then once we get a bit braver over the next week or two, maybe looking at those more advanced features that we can look at in the tool. Some tips, I suppose, to begin with for delivering live. These are just initial tips to do with using the conferences feature in Canvas. So basically checking the minimum requirements. So there's an article there on our help area, help center, that tells that just kind of details the minimum requirements for running sort of an online live session. Now, it's pretty forgiving. I know a lot of people are going to be in different situations depending on their broadband connection and maybe the resources of the laptop or workstation that you're using at home. But I suppose the advantage of conferences, and one of the reasons that we chose it, apart from it being integrated with Canvas, is the fact that you are running everything through the browser. So it's HTML5 based, which means everything is run through whatever your preferred browser is. Usually Chrome is a good choice there. And it means that you're running a very sort of a light session in terms of resources. It runs quite well on mobile, and that's both from sort of delivering and consuming as a student as well. Now there's I suppose you have sandbox modules. Hopefully, if anyone doesn't have a sandbox module in Canvas, let us know. And a sandbox module allows you to kind of do tests of things like this. And testing conferences is quite important from your point of view, because one of the things when you're setting up classes, conferences, is that it notifies your students when one is created. If you have invited them, that is, and we'll look at that in a second. But it's important, I suppose, if you're just trying to get to grips with the tool, that you maybe test it in a sort of a safe environment, somewhere where you're not sort of blasting out emails to the students or notifications, and it just allows you to do a bit of messing around with the tool. And we all need a bit of that, I think, when we're getting familiar with a new tool. So that's just one of the first recommendations there. Also, I suppose, just deciding on a schedule. So if you choose to use this tool, it's good to maybe think of a schedule. If you're going to deliver maybe stuff weekly, or even if it's just every so often, that you maybe think about when that'll happen and that you communicate that with the students, because that's one of the key things, I suppose, in running this stuff, that the students know that it's happening and where it's going to happen. The other thing when you're running a live session, and we're not quite there yet, but do give yourself a bit of time to get set up. I suppose there's 25 odd fully online programs that we run, and all the staff would I suppose feed back on the same point, that it is important to just give yourself a bit of time beforehand to prepare. And that's just to check the technology, just to get yourself sort of a cup of tea or a glass of water, and just to prepare yourself, have everything queued up for the session when you're going to go live. So maybe not just to go live at the point that you've put in the schedule, just beforehand maybe. And so I suppose apart from that, then there's the support element. So one of the big things in this premium offering of Big Blue Button, or conferences as it's known in the navigation in Canvas, is that you have 24/7 support as well. So that means that you can contact Canvas through the help menu in the Canvas interface, or using the phone number and email address there for support to do with that tool. And that's quite important as we get new staff who may wish to use that as an option for delivering online. Just, I suppose, some of the key features. So anyone that's familiar with something like Skype or or any conferencing tool as such. It has pretty much the same features that you would expect. So you have the ability to share your audio and your webcam feed. You have the ability to share PowerPoint files or slide decks and maybe other just popular formats such as PDF or Word. You have the ability also to share your screen. So if you're doing some sort of software demonstrations with students, sharing screen is good. The ability to share external video is quite a nice one. So you can link to maybe things like YouTube videos, Vimeo videos, and once you have the link to those videos, you can play them from within the session and share with the students. So you can maybe just talk around a particular video and play back and so on. One of the big things is being able to chat with your students. So that means that you can, usually it's using web chat, and I'll tell you why in a minute. Similar to the way you might do a sort of an instant message, it's the same with this tool. So you can instant message all of the students from within the platform, and students can talk with you that way. From running online programs, we find that that's the best way really of running something that you're delivering to a group of students. So if you're delivering to, say, 20 students, you don't want them all coming in and using their microphones. So that's important, and it allows you to get on with delivering as well. If you're delivering a lecture, or if you're delivering a support session, that you want to be able to sort of run that in a structured way. Also, you have the ability, obviously, to record the session as well. So that means that once you tell the tool to record, it'll record the session, and that session will be made available to the students afterwards. So they're the key features of conferences. I suppose the next thing to do is just to have a closer look. So what I'm going to do, if you bear with me a second, is I'm just going to come out of here and into a sample module in Canvas. Just to make sure, actually, Gerard or Dara, can you just confirm that you can see the module area there? Okay, great. Thanks, Dara. So this is just a sample module, and this could very well be your sandbox module as well. And what we want to do is we want to look at creating a conference. So conferences is available under the conferences menu item here in the left. And you'll see a lot of concluded conferences because I've done a lot of testing here. So this is what your sandbox module might look like. So it's important maybe to get that testing done. And then once you're confident enough that you can start to schedule any of the live sessions you're going to run, and that you don't have a lot of this sort of past stuff. No, you can delete this and clean it up, but I think it's good just to do the testing in Sandbox. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create almost like a class instance. So if you go to the plus conference option there, you have the ability to name that session. The type is Big Blue Button. That's the tool we're using. Duration here is quite important. So the duration is basically the duration of the session. So if you had shortened that to something like 30 minutes, and if you went beyond the 30 minutes, that's completely fine, but your students won't be able to join beyond that point. So if you had students that were late for the class, for instance, and it went beyond the duration that you've set here, they wouldn't be able to join. Also, if they left the session halfway through for some reason, or something didn't work out, it means they can't come back into the session after the set duration that you have here. So it's important, I suppose, to allocate a sort of a decent amount of time. 60 minutes is probably accurate enough to what we all spend maybe in the equivalent of a face-to-face lecture, but completely up to you what you want to do. So I'm going to just keep that at the 60 minutes for the moment. Now, I think for the most part as well, it's best to just tick this box for enabling recording for this conference all of the time, really, because what it does is it just provides the option for recording. It doesn't automatically record. So I suppose you'd like the ability to record the session within the session once you start it, rather than having to come out and tick this box again. The no time limit is for longer running conferences or classes. So if you want to, if you're not sure and you want to run something quite long, it's good maybe to have that no time limit, and then you're certain that students will be able to join you at any particular time. So if it was a 2-hour session, for instance, it wouldn't cut off students. The other thing that's quite important here is the description. So what it does give you is a sort of a container for your class or your conference, but there's no time tied to that. So it doesn't add a time option. So it's kind of open-ended. Now, what we can do, obviously, is we want to communicate with our students what time the session is going to take place. So that's where you'd put that. So if you say, you know, time 14:30, date the 19th March, topic, well, the topic is probably going to be the name, but you get, you know, if you had something else, so we will talk about the BBB, which is Big Blue Button. So that's going to show up under the title of your class instance. Underneath here, then you have invite all module members. So if that by default, that invites anyone that's enrolled in the module in Canvas. So that would be any other teaching staff that might be enrolled, and also any students that are enrolled on the module. So I suppose it's important that, you know, the students are obviously enrolled in that module in order to access it. Now, if you wanted to run the session with only a number of members or people in the class, you could choose those in here. So I have a few, I have my colleagues in here, and I'm going to choose Paul, who's down here, as John Keneally, and he's going to be the one student. Now, actually, what I'll do is, if Gerard and Dara don't mind, I might just send them an invite. They're just going to get something into their mailbox. So I'll invite everyone. But if you did want to just invite one person or 2 people, you could do that here. Okay. So I'm just going to go and invite all module members, and that way, all of the students and any of the co-lecturing staff will actually get a message through Canvas to say this conference has been set up, and you obviously have the details here on when that's going to take place. Now, it's probably a good idea to use the announcements feature coming up to that session just to remind the students that this is going to take place. And, you know, all of these tools run in tandem with each other, and that's why I suppose we're kind of setting out the different options you have available to you. You know, they all complement each other in different ways, and you can use, you know, any combination of all of the above, really. So if I update, that'll actually create the instance for me. So we have a conferences demo for CIT staff conference here. We have the time and the date and the topic. And what I want to do is to now go in and start that conference. Before I do that, I suppose, you know, from a student's point of view, what they'll see is they will see the title here and the description, but they won't see any option to join until you've started the session. So that's the reason, I suppose, why this is important, this description. So once I start, that'll begin up the session, and they'll see the option to join in Canvas. So Paul, I think, will be hopefully there to come into that class. I'm going to just start that class. So this is where it gets all risky. So we're just going to start here. Now, what you will get is the option in here to join with audio. And the reason this is important, I suppose, is from your point of view as a lecturer, you'll always be using the microphone. And from a student's point of view, what we'll be saying is to use the listen only option. And that means that they're not connecting their audio device into the session, and that's sort of the preferred way of running it. So you don't have everyone coming in and using their mics on top of each other if they do have microphones or audio devices. And also, so it gives you a bit of control. Now, it's not to say that's not an option. Students can use their microphones if they connect using microphone, and you can mute them all. But I suppose it's just safer to, for the most part, if you're running something quite controlled and maybe where you don't want them using their microphones, the listen only option for students is good. So the first thing that we're prompted here is to use the microphone. And what that does is it does an echo test. So this is just an audio test. And I'm not sure if I'm sharing that there, but I can hear myself here in the echo test. And I'm going to go click yes. Now, if you didn't hear yourself in that test, you would just click the thumbs down and it'll allow you to choose another audio device. So if you had multiple microphones or a headset and an inbuilt microphone on your machine, then you'd be able to choose those as opposed to what is being defaulted, I suppose, in the browser. Now, the other thing that mightn't have come across there, I suppose I've run this session, you know, for a few times, but the first time you run a session using Conferences or Big Blue Button, you might be asked for permission to access your audio device, and you'll see that in the help documentation. It's just important that you allow your browser, because it is browser based, to access your microphone. Now, one of the first things you see is Paul is actually in here, and he's ready and ready to learn. And he is available in here in the kind of listen only option. So you can see there's a circular icon with JO, so John Keneally, and then you have me, Shane Cronin. So the difference is the circles are students, the squares are instructors. And again, in this mode, the students can't contribute using their microphone, but what they can do is they can chat. So I'm going to just say, hi, I'll call you John for a second, Paul, just because we're John and the thing here. And so, hi, John and all. Can you confirm that you can hear me? So I'm just typing that into the chat down here on the left. And yeah, that just is kind of like a group chat, a public chat. And John says loud and clear. So that's the first thing you do, I suppose, is just make sure that the students can hear you. And if they can't, you just have to step back to that other step where you actually go and you choose the audio device. So this is all browser based. The next thing we do, I suppose, is we look at just the interface. So that's the web chat, and that's probably the most important place. So, you know, I suppose I'll talk about a few tips in a minute, but what we normally do is we might build a few questions into the session, you know, and, you know, every 5 minutes or so, maybe ask the students a question and then they can answer in the chat. And that gives you a chance as well to breathe. It's very important when you're delivering a live session that you don't sort of burn yourself out, and that you know, it's very easy to kind of use all of your material very quickly because you're not really getting the kind of feedback you might do in a face-to-face environment. So the use of the chat keeps it quite structured. You can ask the questions through the chat, or you can actually just say them verbally like I am here. And that's maybe just one of the initial features to show you. The other thing, I suppose, is the ability to record. So I suppose that's something you just need to maybe remind yourself to do. Often I've just done it with a post-it note on the screen to say, you know, reminder to record session. These sessions don't automatically record, you just have the option. So if I start recording, it'll say you can select the record button again to pause. And I generally don't pause it, I just leave it record away. There's no major overhead in terms of sort of online disk space or anything like that. And there is the fear if you pause that you're going to forget to unpause and to resume recording again. So this placeholder sort of image is up in front of us. We can minimize that. And then I suppose the key things we'll want to do is to share content. So we know our audio is working right now, but what we also want to do is to share something. So at a minimum, we could choose to share maybe a PowerPoint slideshow or slide deck. So if I go down to the plus option here, you see the option to start a poll, which we could do, upload a presentation or share external video. So if I go to upload a presentation, it'll present me with an area to upload a file. So I'm just going to browse for files. I'm going to go to my desktop and I have a PowerPoint presentation here ready to be uploaded. So I think as far as I know, it's PDF and PowerPoint. It will take Word as well, but it does recommend PDF for sort of for end viewing. But PowerPoint is perfectly fine, I think, as well. So it's just after saying it's that we have the option to upload it. If I upload it, we'll see just a converting file. So it does a sort of a file conversion, so it plays better for the audience. And then it'll present that in our main window in a moment. Well, this is where the little kinks work out, isn't it? So this is, I think, because I'm sharing my screen in a certain way, you will see the PowerPoint option showing up here. I just ask, John, can you see anything there in front of you? Oh, you can see it. Okay, so he can see it, I can't. I think it's just because I'm sharing it with you folks. So let's forget about that option a second, just take for granted, I suppose, that does work. I'm going to share external video next. So that's where I can actually take a URL. So I'm going to take something from YouTube and I'm going to put that into my session. So you can bring in videos from YouTube and from Vimeo and other channels. Okay, so that's actually sharing the stream in there. So if I play that back, I can actually talk over that, and that plays quite nicely inside in the conferences feature. So apologies for the other thing. I think it's just I have a lot on my graphics card right now in terms of sharing. So I suppose those are the two options: sharing a PDF or sharing. Actually, that is it, is it? Yeah. Okay, so sharing a PDF or a PowerPoint or sharing an external video. The other option available to you, and this is really going to try my graphics card right now, is you have the ability to also share your screen. So if you click down here on share your screen, it's just below the few icons like mute and leave audio. You can share your screen. Now, I'm not going to do that right now because it's going to have this effect of repeating everything that's on my screen right now. But you'll be able to do sort of a software demo if you would like to share anything that you've opened on your machine to your students that way. So apologies for that. It's just the reason I'm running a conference within a conference. So just a bit of load on my machine. Okay, so two options when you're sharing. The obvious ones are sharing a PDF or a PowerPoint and sharing an external video. And then that other one is sharing your screen. Now, I think the preferred thing, if you're just sharing PowerPoints, is to upload them and use that first option. Sharing your screen does take a bit of resource power from your machine because you're using your graphics card quite a lot there. So I would maybe recommend that you use that sparingly if you are using it, and maybe use it with small groups as well if you need to. Okay, so that's that. I'm going to just go back here and just see what else we're looking at. So you have the option to mute yourself. If I mute myself, I get an audible response there saying that my audio is muted, and so my students can't hear me. So if you were to take a glass of water or something like that, you could do that here. You can also use your webcam. So I'm going to choose it, but it's probably going to be quite resource intensive again because I'm running quite a lot here. It's going to ask me to give permission, and you probably see quite a lot of lag in this particular share. So you can see me in there. I'll cancel that. And so that's just sharing a webcam. Now, again, I suppose in terms of sharing, your webcam would maybe keep that to a minimum, I suppose, is the advice, because you don't want to be using up all the bandwidth of your internet connection. Okay, so they're the basics. So that's joining your session, communicating with the students through chat, sharing a PowerPoint file or PDF, and also sharing your webcam. So once we've done all that, we can say goodbye to the class, goodbye Paul, and we can go out here and we can end the meeting and end the session, and that gives you a feedback rating option there. And then you're back in here. Now there is a sort of a counterintuitive thing here, because we haven't, I suppose, we've said to end the session, but we've given it a 60-minute duration in the settings. So it's going to continue on because it allows us to rejoin in. So what you can do is you can end it now to commit it to the servers, and then that becomes available under conferences after a period of time. So it doesn't come out straight away out of the live session into recordings. It will take maybe anything up to 2 hours, and there's quite a lot of load on these services at the moment. So you know that can sort of vary in terms of how long it can take. But with the premium version, we have priority, I suppose, in terms of sort of rendering that out. I just want to show you here what a recording looks like. So if I go to conferences here, we have the ability to play back something that was done earlier. So that gives you the video link here. So if I click that, that'll actually play back a recording for us. So that's just me messing about in the conferences feature. But I suppose more importantly, it gives you statistics as well. So if you go into statistics here, what you get is you can get the duration of the session, the viewers, the number of viewers. If you had students speaking, they would be in here. The number of student messaging would be in here as well. If you ran a poll, it would be up here. And I suppose you just get a kind of a participant breakdown as well. So if I had students in here, it would say what duration they were, what time it was they joined, and the activity scores, that feedback rating at the end just on the tool itself. So they are sort of the key things to be aware of in starting or setting up a conference, in communicating with your students, and in sharing content and recording. Now, just to go back to some tips here, I suppose in recap, it's important maybe that you, in the classes, that students participate in listen only mode, and that will be just a matter of us communicating out that fact to them. It's not the end of the world if they do join using a microphone. You can mute them all, and there's a bit of help available on that, on the help documentation. Using chat with your students to communicate is quite good. So that's to chat with them and for them to chat with you. Don't get held up by every question. So that's important. I suppose students might ask a lot of questions at the outset, and fair enough, in the first session there might be a bit of that. But if you're running maybe a few sessions, maybe try and build in a particular point in that session for answering questions. Also, I suppose, build questions into your session. So if you're the one asking questions, it's good thing to give you a break and ask questions maybe every so often. So maybe a typical rule of thumb might be every 5 minutes to ask a question in your session. And that just ensures that you don't, race through the content, but you also keep it interactive, and you ask the students to ask you questions or answer questions that you've asked. So in the who to contact, then I suppose there's the tier 1 support. So again, tier 1 are covering all of the support for this, but we're also developing quite a lot of material or resources around the conferences feature. And so, anything to do with, sharing your slides, we'll be doing there'll be a screencast available for that, because I wasn't able to show you today live online. But also there's other tools like breakout rooms, which allow you to break your students into groups and to have them do, the equivalent of group work that they might do in the face-to-face environment. You have the ability to run polls, and also there's a whiteboard feature in there. So I wasn't covering all of them, I suppose, intentionally today, so that we could just get through the basics of setting up. But I suppose if you're to take anything away from today, it's just maybe do a few tests yourself, maybe first in a sandbox module, see how to get, get comfortable with it. Check on your minimum requirements and that, you're comfortable enough that you're able to deliver something online and in a live sense. And then, I mean, for the most part, people will, and the HTML5 nature of the tool is quite forgiving to people's broadband connections, which is one of the reasons we chose it. Also, I suppose there'll be help from our team. We're going nowhere, so we're going to be here to support you. If there's stuff that, the local context stuff, the CIT stuff, if you have technical queries, maybe try and keep them to the Canvas Tier 1 support, because they're quite well up on any of that. But we're developing help resources quite a lot for this stuff, so there'll be a lot of that stuff being added all the time. And then IT services are good if you're looking at the team support. One other thing to note as well is that we've had a few questions about from staff of how students can run their own live sessions. And I suppose while you can run sessions with students using this conferencing tool and have them kind of opt into those, students can't use the conferences feature ad hoc. They can't use it outside of scheduled times without your intervention, which is why we're recommending Google Hangouts for students. So students have access to the Google Suite, and Google Hangouts is a tool that allows them to do, student to student and group sessions. So if you are being asked by students, that will be the recommended thing. And there'll obviously be more help resources for students, but we're concentrating on you folks at the moment. So I hope that was of some use. Maybe what we'll do now is we'll stop the live stream to YouTube, and thanks very much for coming to the live stream there. And for anyone who wants to ask any questions, we might open it up to the interactive sessions on Zoom. So I'm just going to stop that live stream now.